Welcome, my friends, to Inside the Minds of Authors. I'm DC Gomez, and I'm thrilled you're joining me today for a fun conversation with a passionate author. We're kicking off the program, like it's our tradition, with a short reading from the feature book. I hope you guys enjoy it. Let's get started.
Well, hello. My name is Dana Wayne. I am a romance author. I live in the beautiful piney woods of East Texas, where I am sixth or seventh generation Texan, depends on who you ask. And today I'm going to be reading an excerpt to you from my fourth work, a contemporary romance entitled Chasing Hope. The short answer on the story is a single mom, a wounded warrior, and a precocious 7-year-old matchmaker. And the scene I'm reading to you today is a part of chapter 4. And this is an interaction between Max and Maddie. What a piece of crap. Max peeked around the corner of his house where he had just finished wrapping an outside faucet in anticipation of the early freeze. Maddie sat on the cold ground in front of her mother's car, a faded pink bicycle beside her, a broken chain in her hand. What's a piece of crap? She jumped at his question, then ducked her head. Don't tell Mama I said that, please. Why not? He bit back a grin. Her mother probably wouldn't appreciate such language from a kid. She squirmed on the ground, then stood and faced him. She works really hard and wanted me to have a bike like the other kids. The wind whipped her hair around, and she stepped toward him, voice lowered. We got this one at the Goodwill 'cause it was cheap. Long dark curls swirled around a cherubic face, highlighted by eyes of the deepest blue. I bet this is what Elizabeth Taylor looked like as a kid. She'd get her feelings hurt if she knew I called it a piece of crap. For a moment, her earnestness stunned him into silence. Let me see. Maybe I can fix it. I doubt it. Mr. Brown fixed it 3 times already. I think it's broke for good this time. Max inspected the bike and saw the seat needed a new pad. The handlebars were loose and a couple of spokes were missing from the crooked front wheel, which needed to be replaced. This may take me a few minutes. Why don't you go inside? It's cold out here. Can't I watch what you're doing? I might have to do it by myself next time. He started to argue, but one look at her determined face and he changed his mind. Well, fixing the chain is pretty involved since we don't have the right kind of tool. Delicate brows puckered and she sighed. Well, that's it then. Thanks for trying, Max, and for fixing Blue. It sure made Mama happy yesterday. I didn't say I couldn't fix it. I said it would be involved. Immediately, those blue eyes sparkled and a smile lit up her face. You can fix it? Really? I can. Okay, what do we do first? The chain proved to be a pain in the butt, and the fix would only be temporary. He made a mental note to replace it with a new one as soon as possible. Without telling Skye, of course. He didn't want her to be embarrassed again or feel obligated in any way, even if it meant missing out on more cookies. Maddie wanted to help, so he let her hand him tools and hold things, but mainly she delayed the process, though he didn't really mind. She was extremely bright, with an inquisitive mind and talkative nature. She always spoke when she saw him outside or at the diner. Their conversations were interspersed with a multitude of questions on a wide range of topics. Why seemed to be her favorite word. No one was more surprised than him to discover he didn't mind in the least. Max, can I ask you something? She continued before he had a chance to reply. Are you married? Of all the questions he anticipated, that didn't even make the top 100. Eyes focused on the bike, he shook his head. No. Do you have a girlfriend? He cut his eyes toward her and frowned. No. She nibbled on her bottom lip and dropped her gaze. Low voice, soft and gentle, she asked, Do you like kids? Only ones like you. He spoke without thought or hesitation. Her face brightened with a huge smile, and he was glad he did so. Well, you really need a girlfriend. Okay, so that was certainly not something he would expect from a kid, but damned if he wasn't totally captivated. You got someone in mind? Uh-huh. My mom needs a male companion. The wrench used to tighten the handlebars slipped from his hands. His eyes widened and he stared a full 10 seconds before he could form a reply. She what? I overheard Miss Gale tell her that the other day. She handed him the drop tool. I see. Like hell I do. I didn't know what it meant, so I Googled it. You Googled it. She inspected the handlebars. Uh-huh. I mean, yes, sir. We don't have a computer, so I used one in the library. She slipped him a curious glance, eyes focused on the scar on his cheek. Some of it I didn't really understand. You think? But I got the gist of it, and I think you'll do just fine. The little pixie left him speechless. How old are you? Blue eyes sparkled with glee. I'll be 8 on Christmas Eve. 8 going on 30. I'm pretty smart. They wanted me to skip some grades at school, but Mama didn't like that idea, so they put me in some special classes for smart kids. She looked at his scar again. Did you get that being a soldier? Off balance, he gave a quick nod of his head and tried to focus on the handlebars. Undeterred, she fidgeted on the step beside him. I have scars, too. I fell off the monkey bars in first grade and broke my collarbone real bad. And I had my appendix took out when I was 5. She concentrated on his hands as he worked. Mine don't hurt, though. Do yours? Suddenly, images of the ambush, screams, and bullets flying swamped him out of nowhere. He couldn't get enough air. His hands trembled. His heart rate soared, and he froze. Don't let it in. Concentrate on the now. What you're doing. Don't let it in. He had no idea how much time passed as he sat there, fingers frozen around the rusted handlebars. When he finally regained a measure of control, he looked up and saw those all too seeing eyes focused on him. She placed a hand on his arm and squeezed. It does hurt, doesn't it? When he offered no reply, she raised up and placed a soft kiss on the wound that went so much deeper than the surface. Mama does that sometimes when I have an ouchie. She rubbed a tiny finger over the puckered scar and sat back down. I know it doesn't actually help, but it always makes me feel better inside. Max couldn't move, couldn't speak as his heart rate slowly returned to normal and his labored breathing calmed. He looked at the wide-eyed innocent child beside him, wise beyond her years, and a shred of light pierced through the darkness, eating away at his soul. Thank you, he whispered. You're welcome. I'm sure Mama would kiss it too if you ask her. The wrench hit the ground again.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside the Minds of Stars. I am doing a happy dance. We have the amazing Miss Dana with us. Give it up, come on.
Good morning. How are you today?
I am doing fabulous. Oh,
Great.
I always have confessions because romance is always not my topic,
Mhm.
but really fun romance just captivates you. And
It
this
does.
scene is priceless. By the way, I would have choked that little kid. I know I would probably be going to jail.
Maddie's a trip. Maddie
Would be
is a trip.
oh my God, I'd be totally paralyzed. I don't know. I officially felt like
Mhm.
going on to 30 was probably the
Mhm.
best. So we're going to jump right in because your
Okay.
characters are so relatable, so captivating. And we all have met that little kid that you're going,
Mhm.
are you sure that's your age? Because you know too
Mhm.
much.
Mhm.
Where did this story come from?
Well, my stories are very character driven versus plot driven, and they always come to me character first. And I actually saw a soldier at a fast food place. He was getting his food, and just something about him just caught my attention. And there's something about the look on his face, and I just couldn't get it out of my mind. And then, like a lot of my stuff, writer's brain never sleeps. I don't care even if you're at night. Something keeps your brain going. Well, I woke up with this picture of Max in my head, and I couldn't go back to sleep until I started putting some stuff on paper. And the more I thought about the story, I wanted to address PTSD in it because that's a topic that a lot of military people, as well as first responders and other people, have. But the more research I did on the topic, the more I knew this wasn't the place to do that. But I wanted it because it's a part of Mac's character, it needed to be in the story. So I've got him in post-treatment. He's been like 16 months going through treatment. He's developed coping skills and all these kinds of things to help him get along. but he hasn't made that next step yet. But once I got the idea for the story, everything else just flowed. And I'm very happy to say that that book, Chasing Hope, won the Best Indie Book Award last year for contemporary romance, which is an international award. It's also going to be out on audiobook soon. So, by the fabulous John Tanner, he's narrating it for me. So, but like I said, just something sparks an idea, and then writer has four favorite words: what if and the end. And every what if that you come up with gets you closer to the end. And all this with Max was like, what if he was post treatment and what's his story? Where did he come from? What if he was this? What if he was that? And, Max's thing is the title of the book is Chasing Hope. In the beginning, it was just called Max's Story because my titles don't come to me right away. They just kind of evolve over time. And my critique partner, Patty Wiseman, and I were brainstorming one day a particular scene, and she made the statement, well, Max is always chasing hope. And I went, whoa, that's the name of the book. That's it. Because Max, he grew up in foster care. He has no family and the Marines were his family, and then when he had an injury forced him out of that, he was just kind of at loose ends. He had nothing, nobody. And so I said, "You're right, that's what it is. He is always chasing hope. A hope for a new life, a hope for a better beginning." And Skylar Ward, the female, the heroine in the story, is the same way. She's been by herself for a long time, and she's wanting that family feeling again. And so they just kinda work together, chasing hope together. It's really cool. Of all the books I've written 6, I'm working on my 7th book now. Of all the books I've written, Chasing Hope is my favorite. And don't tell my others I said that, they're kinda like kids, they'll get their feelings hurt. But,
We would not say anything. This is our secret.
but the characters in it are so strong, I'm just so thrilled with them. In fact, I had a couple of different contests that I put that story in, and the thing that was the strongest in the story was the characterization. And readers tell me all the time it's like a Hallmark movie in a book, that all the way down to the sappy, sentimental ending at Christmas.
And Miss Dana, let's talk
Mhm.
about this. You write romance. Does it come with that happy ending, of course?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a misconception that all romance has a happy ending, but that's not true. It's either a romance or it's a love story. My books are a romance. There's a guaranteed happily ever after. You're gonna walk down the aisle, the couple's gonna be together. There's no guessing about it. Gone with the Wind, excellent love story, not a romance. Because what's her name? Scarlett is standing at the door. There's always tomorrow. Well, what happens tomorrow? You have to figure it out on your own. In my books, there's no question.
I love the fact that you were able to describe it because sometimes I think there's that confusion. And people think, well,
Mhm.
there's a romance. There's a romance and there's a love story, and they're not
Exactly.
the same.
Exactly.
There's still passion, there's still all this energy. They're not what people expect. So if you tell somebody this is a love story, they're not going with the expectation that it's going to end
That's
happily
right.
ever after.
And if you tell somebody, "Is it a love story or a romance?" They're like, "Well, it's the same thing." No, it's not. In a love story, there's no happily ever after. There's that standing at the door watching them walk away, there's gonna be tomorrow thing. No. That's the biggest difference.
Yeah. There's not that guaranteed of what's going to happen. You
It's
know what I
right.
mean? You can have love and love stories in any type of genre, but it doesn't make them a romance automatically. So I
Right.
appreciate it. When you were coming up with this 7-year-old absolute little brat that is fearless,
Mhm.
did you had a person in mind?
Actually, I did. My grandson, who is, well, he's a policeman in another town right now. He's in his 20s. But when he was young, well, he still is. He's very intelligent. When he taught himself to read, and by the time he started kindergarten, he was so far above the other kids that it took him a while to realize that he was very gifted. He's very intelligent. I don't know what his IQ is, but it's pretty high. But my daughter didn't want him to be in special classes. She wanted him to be with his friends. So he took these other classes off to the side. But, oh, yeah. By the time he was in the first grade, he was reading on third grade level. And you couldn't have a kid conversation with him because he was just too smart. One good example, we were decorating the Christmas tree one time when he was 4. I have this collection of Santa Clauses, and so we were putting these on the tree, and he's studying these 3 different Santa Clauses. Some of them, old world Santas from way back and some ones that my mother-in-law gave me, and he goes, "Ah, now I get it." And I said, "Get what, baby?" And he goes, "That's what Santa Claus used to look like. And then he looked like that, and now he looks like this." And I'm like, "Deductive reasoning from a 4-year-old?" And my husband was sitting there and he says, "I think I'm gonna have to go back to school to have a conversation with him." But he was kind of like the inspiration for Maddie because he was smart. He is smart. He's funny, and you just never know what he's gonna come up with. That's where I got the idea for Maddie.
Because she is a handful.
Oh, she is. She is. She doesn't take no for an answer. And her mother has to remind her there are boundaries you don't cross, there are questions you don't ask. And she's like, "Well, what if they ask? Or what if they bring it up? Then can I talk about it?" And she's bad about eavesdropping because she says that's the only way she can find out things. So, yeah, she's a hoot.
So my heart goes out to Max because he has his hands full, and she wants to be a matchmaker.
Yeah, she does. She goes out of her way to bring them together.
When you were designing this story, and
Hmm.
usually we see a lot of the relationship in children and like in real life and their parents, and they don't want to share. What made you decide to have the child be the one to be the matchmaker? Because usually you're like, this is my mom, and I don't want
Hmm.
anybody else to take her away.
Because Maddie's different. Maddie isn't like a lot of other kids. She's very intuitive. She's very empathetic. And she saw in Max what was missing, intuitively knew what was missing. And she wants a dad. And she thinks Max is fine. She likes him. And she thinks he's just what her mama needs. And she even tells him that, "I think you'll do just fine." Later on, you find out that's what she wants more than anything in the world is a dad. And Max is perfect for it.
Aw, it's
Yeah,
one of those things. It touches at you. You're like,
it
ah, if you
does.
if you get to pick your dad, you
Mhm.
might as well put it in a list and be like, okay,
That
you're in.
that's it. And Maddie is, like I said, she's just very intuitive, and she looks at people around her. She's more mature than her 7, almost 8-year-old age, just because of where she is and what's happened in her life. She's just one of those kids that you just love her. She loves you, and you love her right back.
Aw. So does this stand alone, or are you doing this as part of a
No,
series?
it's a standalone. All of my books are standalone. They do, the majority of them take place in this small town, fictional town in Texas. And there's a couple of cameos from a previous book in this one, but I don't write a series. Everything is a standalone. I have toyed with the idea because there's, well, like in my 5th book, Unveiling Beulah, it's a Western historical. And there are 3 other characters in that book that readers are saying, "You need to tell their story. You need to tell their story." I don't think there's an end to the story possibilities that I've kind of come up with lately just from secondary characters. That's really a great compliment to a writer when a reader tells you, "Oh my gosh, you need to write Lizzie's story or you need to write Jack's story," because that character was so developed enough to the point that the reader was able to relate to them. And secondary characters are just as important as your main characters because there's so much of the story relies on the interaction between the first and secondary characters in order to move the plot along. If you do your job right as a writer, then those characters are just as engaging as your main characters.
What made you decide to become a writer? What was your inspiration?
Oh my gosh, I have had a love affair with words my whole life. I can remember as a child, my dad had this stack of paperback westerns that he kept beside his chair, and every night he would read from them. I can remember sitting in his lap while he read passages to me, and it just fascinated me that you could paint a picture with words so vivid that you could close your eyes and see it. And I was like, I want to do that. I want to be able to do that." And so I've always wanted to write. I've always known that one day I would do it. I just didn't know that it would be this far along in my life before I did. Working and life and baseball games and football games and, things with your kids and grandkids. And then when I retired in 2013, that was my goal. I told my husband, he said, "What are you going to do with yourself now?" I said, "I'm going to write." I had this book that I'd been working on off and on for years. And I took about, because I used to travel a lot with my job. So I took about, I don't know, 6, 8 months and just kinda got reacquainted with my family, then I dug out all that stuff and started putting it together in a book and published it in 2016 and just been doing it ever since.
I'm a true believer there's no such thing as too late
Oh,
or the
no.
wrong time. It's
No.
just, you just got to do it.
You gotta do it. You gotta do it. If you can dream it, you can achieve it. I saw that somewhere, and it's a little plaque that I have on the wall, because that's my inspiration is if you can dream it, you can achieve it.
And it's so accurate. It's something that just comes to us. So I absolutely love it. So I had the opportunity to meet you of an event last year,
Mm.
and you had a cookbook.
Yes. I tell people all the time, I write, I cook, and I make things.
Look, I am the girl who's addicted to the cozy mysteries, the
Mhm.
ones with the recipes.
Yep.
And I collect them all because I want to make them eventually. Has not
Mhm.
happened, but I
Mhm.
collect them all. So I was like, I need the cookbook. And everybody looked at me saying, what about the other one? It's like, she has a cookbook. Like, I can't talk to you right now. Tell me, where did the idea of publishing this cookbook came from?
Well, I've done I love to cook. I always have. To me, cooking is almost like it's a creative art, like writing or painting or building something. You take a little of this and you little of that and you put it together and add more of this and take something out until you've created something. And I love to do that. I love cooking. I had recipes that I had collected from friends and neighbors over the years and people I used to work with. They said, "Oh, you need to try this recipe." Or they'd bring something to potluck at work, and I'm like, "Oh, that's great. Let me have that." And so I had this box with recipes. So I got to thinking about it one day, and I said, "You know what?" Oh, and then what was it? I think it was Whispers on the Wind. Yeah, I had the heroine to cook something for the hero. At the end of the book, I added those recipes. It was 2 different recipes. So from Whispers on the Wind forward, there's recipes at the end of my books. If the couple, if they cook something or whatever, then I put the recipes in there. Before that, though, I had already started doing the cookbook because I thought, I think I need to do that. And my first cookbook was only, I think it would had like 150 or 60 recipes in it. Well, after I did it, I sold out of it and nothing flat. And after I finished it, I found some more recipes from my mother-in-law, my late mother-in-law. I found a box that had some of her recipes in it, and I'm like, "Oh, I need to do another one." So I did my second one. So basically, I just took the first cookbook and added the new recipes to it. But it's called Cooking with Family and Friends. It's only available at personal appearances or through my website.
I love it. For anybody who's as crazy as cookbooks as I am, and you know they're guaranteed homemade, you need to check this one out. Absolutely. Check out the website. So, madam, tell me, where do you get your inspirations?
It's like I said, a writer's brain just never sleeps, and everything that you hear, see, feel, taste, touch, everything is kinda like stored in this massive mainframe in your brain. And then when you go to sleep, that stuff just kinda floats around until it makes a connection somewhere. When you have a dream and 9 times out of 10, it comes to me, I dream something that sparks the idea, and then here I go. For Unveiling Beulah, I woke up with this woman in my head standing on a train platform, and she had a scar on her face. And it was just a very fleeting thing that just kind of popped in and out of my head. And so when I woke up, it was there and it wouldn't go away. So I sat down and I said, okay, who is this woman? Where is she? Why is she here? How did she get this scar? An hour and a half later, the first 2 chapters of Unveiling Beulah was typed, and I went back to bed. But anything can spark the idea. It's just, what's it gonna be? Whispers on the Wind has a ghost in it that talks to the sheriff to help him solve a murder. It was one of those things where I don't even remember where I saw it, but it was a commercial for something, and it had this ghost in it that talked to the person, said, "You need to buy this," or "You need to do that." It just kinda went in and out of my head, and then later I was thinking about it, and I thought, a ghost. Okay." I said, "How can I use that in a story?" So I have this everybody has it, this to be written file. So I had ghost story, and I wrote this ghost talks to somebody. Well, it kinda sat there for a little bit, and then one day, it was time to start my next book, so I'm looking through my to be written stuff, and I thought, "Ghost story. Let me look at that." Well, I had to look at it for a little bit to get the idea, and then once I did, it was off to the races. And I'm a pantser all the way. I don't plan. I don't outline. Patty tells me all the time, she uses this real basic outline to kind of keep her focused and on track because I paint myself into a corner and I think, well, that's not what I wanted to do. How do I get out of this? Well, I got to take that out and start over. I need to go back and that's where I am now. My current work is because I changed my mind on something. So I have to go back and make changes to make it work. But that's what works for me. Some people are very methodical in their plotting and planning. I'm not. But once I decided on a project, then I just sit down and start typing till the words quit. And then if I'm on my current work, if I'm doing that and kind of lose track or whatever, then I'll just stop and pick up one of the others because there's always a few words there. You can look at it and say, okay, they could go here from there. Yeah, that'll work. And then when that dries up, you close it out and pick up another one. But ideas can come from anywhere, and all it takes is that one little idea, like the ghost talking to somebody. Okay, who's he talking to and why? What's he saying? What's going to happen? And here we go. Whispers on the wind.
Love the fact that you're a pantser because I'm a little bit of both, but I need an outline. So, Madame, tell us where can our listeners find you, where they can get more about the book, where they can get the cookbook.
The cookbook is only available on my website, danawayne.com. My books are available on Amazon, all major outlets. You can also order signed copies through my website at danawayne.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at danawayne423, and I'd be happy to chat with you. I also have a podcast myself called A Writer's Life. I do episodes on just about writing, tips for writers. I typically read an excerpt from one of my books and just go from there.
I love it. So, Madame, before you leave us, are you ready for the lightning round?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
All right. Don't think too much about this. Easy peasy. Morning or evening? What do you prefer?
Morning.
Nice. My kind of lady. Cat or dogs?
Cat.
Caffeine or decaf?
Caffeine.
You let me try to figure out why we have the other one. Spicy or sweet?
Spicy.
Ooh. Here's a little different. Let's see what you think about this. If you were stuck in a deserted island and can only have three things, what will you take?
My iPad, a knife, and coffee. Of course, I have to be real careful with my iPad because if it runs out of battery, then I'm SOL.
I'm glad that you have to be careful with the iPad and not the knife. At least I know you're focused and you're dedicated. It's all good. But it's been such a pleasure. Do you have any closing comments for us?
Reading is great. Reading is a great escape. Reading romance is, to me, it's one of the, I don't know, highlights of my day. I love to read. I'll read anything as long as it's interesting. And whatever your passion is, go for it with full gusto. Don't let somebody tell you that it's your age, it's your gender, it's your this, or it's your that. No, don't take no for an answer. If it's something that you want to do it. Pursue it
Ooh,
if it makes you happy.
I love it, Madame. To listeners, this is an amazing advice. Follow your dreams. Make
E-
sure you know that you're meant for greatness. So thank you, Madame.
Exactly. Exactly.
It has been an absolute pleasure. I can't wait to see you again another live event. So it'll be
I'm sure
amazing.
we will. I can't wait to see you again either. Thank you so much for having me today. I had a blast.
It has been a pleasure, listeners. Make sure you check out Miss Dana, check out her website, look for the books. They're absolutely a blast. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Bye, guys.